Yeah, folks, believe it or not, we've got some new cards to review, including 4 new legendaries. The new 2026 core set was revealed today, the year of the Scarab. And we got a handful of brand new class cards coming to standard format, along with some other really big changes. I'll put a link down in the description below if you want to read more. Like Shadow Step is out, Brawl is out. Some staples are moving out of the core set and some new stuff is moving in. So let's go ahead and jump into all of these new cards to try to guess just how impactful they will be. Kicking things off here with Rhaegar Earth Fury. And I'm so freaking pumped to see Rhaegar Earth Fury, maybe one of my all-time favorite Warcraft characters, just because I played him a ton in Here's the Storm. Used to read about him in the comic too, love that. Anyway, Rhaegar new Shaman legendary, 5 mana, 3/5. After this, or in adjacent minion attacks, get a lightning bolt. So a way here to add a bunch of lightning bolts to your hand, as long as you can throw this down and attack with adjacent stuff, or maybe give this rush could help. Give this rush and Wind Fury. You're really off to the races. But I think the main use case here will be stuff like Voltaic Burst, which I did confirm is staying in the core set. So if we look at Voltaic Burst, right, this is kind of the perfect support card for Rhaegar, where you throw down your Rhaegar, you use Voltaic Burst, that summons you 2/1/1 sparks with Rush. Those come up next to Rhaegar, you trade them both in, right? Trade one in, kind of roll it over like the old Flame Tongue Totem days, and then trade the second one in. That's 2 lightning bolts added to hand. You have a couple Voltaic Bursts, suddenly you got 4 lightning bolts. Anything left behind on board, that's maybe even more lightning bolts, which that just turns into a lot of damage, right? While still, kind of maybe dealing with the board a little bit. You might need a fair bit of mana overhead there. If you wanted to try to kill the opponent in the same turn, that might be rather tough, because Rhaegar is 5 cost at the start of all of that. So you might have to kind of set up for later, get all those lightning bolts in hand with some other maybe damage you had in hand already, use some spell damage and blow people up. So I think the question for Rhaegar is really 2 things, right? Like, can you manifest enough lethality out of all that? For instance, if you have a 7 mana turn with Rhaegar into double Voltaic Burst and 4 lightning bolts, like, does that get you there with spell damage and stuff? Is that a combo? Keep in mind, Voltaic Burst also did have some overload. So, it's you're kind of thinking, like, can I map out a way to turn this into lethal? I'm a little hesitant on that side of things. Like, does this just naturally play into the game plan as well? Are there like some nature spell synergies, which we saw a few technically, but probably don't really want to play that nicely with lightning bolts, or this stage of the game, kind of the mid game on here from turn 5 or later. So I don't know. I think it's promising and cool in a weird way for this kind of OTK value generator with all these lightning bolts, but I do wonder if the setup is worth it. You could almost kind of see this as like I don't know, a weird little bloodlust or something too, right? Where you have a couple things on board, you play Rhaegar, and then each attack kind of turns into 3 more damage. That's a bloodlust, but it's not as good, right? Because lightning bolts still cost 1 mana. It's not hitting everything. If you have 5 things on board, Rhaegar can't be adjacent to all of them unless they're trading in, so they can't go face, right? So if you think about it that way, it's like, this is kind of a worse bloodlust, isn't it? So you have to look more of the like combo setup, spell damage later sort of thing, maybe some nature spell synergies. I definitely will say, like, it does something big and cool, but the condition on it and the cost on it both feel a little bit too prohibitive for me, that I think this is like smooth and really serves as a win condition in and of itself. I think it's going to be kind of too hard to get to those spots where you get enough lightning bolts to make this 5 mana worth it. So ultimately, sad to say, I don't really think my buddy Rhaegar here is going to blow people up in Hearthstone like I used to use him to blow people up in Here's the Storm, which he was a healer, but you can still get some kills. He had this little jump ability in wolf form that could secure some kills. His big heal was amazing. Anyway, I'm reliving my glory days of Here's the Storm, but Rhaegar, I don't know if he's going to have any glory days in Hearthstone. All right, moving on over to Demon Hunter. This is Tychondrius, and gonna look real familiar to Mal'Ganis, which is fun little flavor lore connection here. He is a 9 mana 9/8 demon this time around. It kind of bugs me a little bit that they didn't make him a 9/7 like Mal'Ganis, but you know, the extra health is nice. It kind of matters for a unit like this. With the exact same first sentence here, your hero is immune. The second sentence is a little different. Mal'Ganis, as you remember, used to buff your demons. Tichondrius instead helps you cheat one out. Battlecry, your next demon this turn, costs 0. So you can basically slam Tichondrius and hopefully another really big demon alongside it. Demon Hunter has always had this kind of big demon thing running alongside it. Basically, though, that kind of means you're sort of cheating out Tichondrius in a way, right? Because you could probably play that other big demon anyway. I guess technically a 10 drop, you can get down 1 turn sooner here. So like Omen is definitely a possibility. But for a wild god, you know, but mostly you're kind of getting, you know, a 0 mana 9/8 if you were already going to play a really big demon. So it kind of has to be in a deck that's running big demons. The immune aspect here, as we know, of course, can protect you from like over the top damage or something. Your opponent has to divert some time, energy, thought into dealing with Tichondrius before they deal with you. I will say, you know, like a lot of decks just don't have a problem doing that. You know, removing a single minion is not a particularly big challenge these days. Often you, in fact, do it for 2, 3, or even less mana in many cases. I think ideally you'd probably want to play like a taunt alongside Tichondrius so that maybe, you know, if they're a minion-based deck, they wanted to use a rush minion to clear Tichondrius or something, they'd have to push through the taunt first. Maybe you could buy some time, hide your Tichondrius to give you more moments. Demon Hunter in particular does also have some upsides with immune that, you know, Warlock was also able to utilize, you know, play Mal'Ganis, life tap, that sort of thing, right? Tichondrius, on the other hand, is with weapon attacks. If you play a Tichondrius, you have damage ready to go, like a weapon, or maybe you played Chronocar and you have that 3 damage rolling over, right? You can then play Tichondrius and get to attack into something without taking that return damage, which, you know, in theory is a little upside, maybe gives you the ability to clear something without as much risk. Not super excited about that again, though, for like a 9 mana play. It might come into, you know, make an impact here and there, but rarely is that actually going to be a thing you're excited about or lines up, or certainly not a reason to like run Tichondrius. And that's where I start asking the big questions for this card is like, what is the deck use case? What is the reason I'm so excited about Tichondrius? Because I'm not really cheating anything out. You know, if this was a 6 mana card that allowed me to cheat out a big demon, hey, we'd be really pumped. But at 9, you're already up at the top of the range anyway. So it's more about Tichondrius himself. What is he worth in combination with another card? It's harder to piece that together and figure out why I'm excited. Other than, you know, it's just like 2 big bodies coming down. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also not like, hey, this is a game-winning thing. Hey, I'm really excited about this. This is my super strong 9 cost play. Maybe he exists as a filler in an Elise deck where you just need a 9 drop or something. I don't know. I just think ultimately, like, it's fine. There are moments. I think randomly generating this will be really important. Randomly summoning this will be really important from like summon pools at the 9 cost spot. It's a really neat card to exist. I don't necessarily think, though, that I'm expecting a big impact from a deck building standpoint. Like, I don't see this popping into a lot of Demon Hunter decks and making a really big, powerful impact. Maybe if the immune is really good against some like over-the-top OTK decks, your opponent's trying to Rhaegar you with lightning bolts, you slam Tichondrius, but I think there's so many other ways to deal with this and to kill people that Tichondrius just won't work really as that sort of denial. It's more about just a big pile of stuff and maybe some like friction, and I don't know if it's good enough there. All right, moving on to Priest here. It's Kalia Minithil, a 6 mana 4/5 undead, which is crazy because she doesn't really look undead to me in this art. I mean, I guess maybe she just came back to life and retained some beauty. I don't know how it works. But she's Battlecry. Resurrect your highest cost minion that died this game, which I actually think this is a pretty neat little effect. Priest certainly is the kind of class historically that can get some big crazy stuff down. Even right now, stuff like a Quest Priest, you know, just get your quest done, get those crazy big Solitas guys out and use Kalia as a way to resurrect one of those. That's instantly going to be worth it and totally fine for a 6 cost card. In fact, kind of perfect if you manage to somehow do it on curve, or you play like the big 5 cost guy and then this. That seems pretty challenging to do, but either way, there are minions that are certainly worth 6 or more when it comes to resurrecting them, and you get kind of a free 4/5 bonus body. Other battle cry synergies here could exist. You know, if you wanted to double it somehow with Dios or something, you could. I don't know if that'd be worth it, but you get the idea. Good at a base, I think. Good for the class. Has some crazy strong upside, just, you know, generating new copies of very, very powerful cards that tend to exist in Hearthstone. So in my mind, this one looks actually really strong. I think a lot of late game priest decks will run this. I think it's an amazing hit off of Imbue as well. So just really, really good card for priest. Shockingly good. All right, moving on here to Ulfar. This is a new 6-mana 4/3 Druid legendary. I was kind of surprised this one wasn't a beast. I know it's like a Drust or whatever from a lore standpoint, but it's like a transformed one. Usually when we see humanoid druids transform into their animal forms, that then becomes a beast in Hearthstone. I don't know, maybe because he's a weird drusty beast. He's not, just was a little surprised he wasn't a beast. Doesn't matter anyway. I'm getting into the weeds. Battle cry reads, give your other minions death rattle, summon a minion with this minion's cost. So basically here a way to kind of protect your board. If you got a wide board of little junk, tokens, treants, whatever it is, slam an Ulfar, and then there are, you know, a problem if your opponent removes the first half of that board. You've got that second layer here of resummons that they then have to deal with again. It's kind of got like Soul of the Forest vibes. You guys remember that spell? But here's the thing, right? Like, Soul of the Forest is a 3-mana spell, dude. And it's like, you know, this is probably going to be something you'd want to use with like treants, right? Which are 2-cost cards. So this is going to basically, you know, make your treants summon random 2-cost cards, which on average are probably a little better than treants, but they also don't feed into like treant synergy either. So it's like, man, if I'm playing at least a treant deck, I'd definitely rather have Soul of the Forest for a number of reasons: to get more treants. Number two, it's way cheaper. So, you know, you can like play this on turn 4 to support a board you've built through like the first 3 turns or whatever. And I think this used to be a 4-cost card, didn't it? Or am I losing my mind? It feels like it got rebalanced somewhere along the way. So by the time you get to like 6, you know, this is the same output in a treant deck anyway, and it's way more expensive. The 4/3 body, it's not even supporting itself. I think if this just said give your minions and it hit itself, that would be really cool, because then you'd have like a 6-drop in the pool automatically. You could also just like play this card as kind of a piloted Sky Golem of sorts or something, right? Where it's like, hey, our piloted Shredder with the better back half, you know. Maybe you can do something there, but the fact that it's only other minions means you have to get to a point on turn 6 or later where you've still got a wide board, which can be a little bit tough to do. Now, of course, the upside on Ulfar is that if you do have big stuff, if you have an 8-cost card that's stuck around on board somehow, right, you can play Ulfar and then it's going to summon an 8-cost instead of a random 2-cost. So there's definitely upside as your costs scale, but that's a lot harder to make work, right? Like, how are you getting multiple 8-costs in play and they've stuck on board and you've played an Ulfar? Maybe there's some energy, mana cheat some ways. You can get like multiple things done in one turn, discount this somehow. Like, there's definitely ideas there. It's like, but maybe other cards that like summon random garbage 6-drops for cheap. Like, I'm trying to think about ways to get all that to happen, but it just feels tough, right? Like, I don't really see that lining up all that often. And the most obvious proven use cases here are those small wide token boards where this becomes a follow-up, and I don't really think it's as impactful there. So is there a middle ground somewhere where you get a bunch of 4-drops on board and Ulfar can support those? That would maybe be the sweet spot for this card. There'd have to be something printed almost specifically to do that, I think, because as you see it right now, it seems rather hard to do. You know, something like like an aura style or sigil style effect where it's like in 2 turns, summon 3 4/4s or something, right? And that lines up into turn 6, and then you play your Ulfar, and it's like, hey, okay, I kind of preloaded the board for Ulfar. That would be how you'd make this one work. So I'm not going to say it's impossible to print support for this, just that it would have to be something pretty specific. And the things we see right now and historically maybe are harder to work with for this one. So it's got a chance. I just think it's going to be tough. So moving on to Death Knight here. We got 2 new Death Knight cards, no new legendary, but a couple spells. First one is Death's Advance. This is a 2-mana double frost spell. It allows you to freeze a character, that can be face or minions, and discover a spell. So generate a little something while stalling out your opponent. I actually like cards like this. I think it's just like cheap and flexible. You know, those stalls can be really valuable sometimes against a big threat, against a face attack. Just gives you a little bit of a breather, which is nice. Could also have some freeze synergies, you know, effects that are based on the number of frozen things, or conditionally if something is frozen. So that's cool. And then discovering a spell, that's great, right? Just giving you more stuff to do later. So this little kind of gap filler card, I think these tend to pop into decks, particularly right after a rotation when the card pool is smaller. This is the sort of thing that just, like, you know, cards 24 through 30 at the bottom of your list, you're like, yeah, okay, this makes sense to me. I'm going to squeeze this in. So I think this will actually get a notable amount of play. Of course, there's always that question about Rune Fit in Death Knight. Like, if a Double Frost Rune deck doesn't show up, then clearly this won't show up either. But that's just so hard to really guess. But if we ever see a Double Frost deck, this seems like a really good piece of that puzzle. And then finally here, our last new card for the core set is Consumption. This is a 4-mana spell this time around, double blood runes on this one, and it deals 3 damage to 2 random enemy minions. Then you draw a card for each that dies. So I will say, like, when this card hits, that's pretty good, right? You get to draw 2 cards for 4 mana, but you also get to clear 2 things. That would be an excellent result. Every time it hits, you'd be like, yes, okay, I love this, man. I'm dealing with their board. I'm getting me resources. I'm in a control deck. Like, I love those things. That's great. The issue for me with Consumption that I'm worried about is how often is it going to hit, because those 3 damage hits are to random enemy minions, and this is a 4-cost card. So at some stages, you know, you get into turn 4, there may not be 3 health stuff. You know, they play a Xavius or whatever. That's a bad example. Is he rotating? Maybe not. They play a Xavius. And you know, it's 4 health, and it's like, well, crap. You know, I'm not getting 2 kills here because I only have 1 minion on board. You kind of have to have the exact right shaped board at the right time for your Consumption to line up well. And then there's even instances where they have a 5/5 and a 1/1, and you're like, oh no, man, like, this is still not the right shape. So, and then there's instances too where it's like, you know, they have 5 2/2s, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, this is going to definitely hit and draw me some cards, but I haven't really dealt with the full problem either, right? Like, I'm still leaving a lot of pressure out against me as well. So the fact that it's not a full AoE, the fact that it's, you know, like, conditional on that card draw, I think it's going to make this one awkward sometimes, where it's just sitting in hand and it's like, God, I just cannot find a moment to play this, and it's so stuck. And that's usually really bad for card draw, because the times you need card draw the most are when you already feel stuck and you're trying to find good stuff to do and find lines and plays. So you're going to get kind of like double stuck and like doubling down on a play that's like really hard to use when you just need to cycle into new stuff. That's going to be really tough. So I don't know, man. I think this one is going to be really hard to use. Maybe out of desperation, just having enough critical mass of control tools, some double blood decks might have to run it. Again, post rotation, it has more room for that. But I think it would be quickly forgotten thereafter, because I think it's going to be too hard to line this one up too often. And that's a bad problem for card draw cards in particular. All right, so all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Rhaegar Earth Fury is a 2-star card. Hychondrius is a 2-star card. Kalia Menethil is a 5-star card. Ulfar is a 2-star card. Death's Advance is a 4-star card. Consumption is a 2-star card. And yeah, that's the new stuff in the core set. I will say those weren't the only big changes to the core set, like not only rotating cards, but also some changed cards. Some adjusted cards, some of which actually looked kind of nuts. If I just pull this up real quick, I mean, I don't like review old cards, but you kind of could in these new contexts. But Halazi the Lynx, for instance, this is nuts now, I think. A 4-mana 4/2 with Rush. It got Rush, it got cheaper, and it still fills your hand with Lynxes. So this is just a ton of stuff. It has some immediate reactivity, which is nice. Think about Quest in particular from the mini set, like filling your hand is another way to do it. Might be harder to empty the hand, I guess. Still, well, no, I guess emptying the hand is easy still with the monkey dude. So no, I don't know. Could be Quest support. Probably not enough to get that there, but interesting. The rest of these, I mean, Brightwing actually looks kind of good to me now as a cheap dragon, like 2-mana 3/2. Instead of 3 mana, that's way easier to flex that in. Shaku is now another class instead of your opponent's class, so better in mirror matches. Curator, I think, just got a text change. Witch's Apprentice for 0 is kind of a neat idea for like Elise decks. You know, it's a nice 0 cost to put in for sure. So some small changes, some big changes, and some promising cards with Halazi in particular. So Year of the Scarab looks like it could be pretty spicy. Curious to hear your thoughts on these cards, the new cards, all that stuff. Leave those down in the comments below. Thanks so much, as always, for watching. And until next time, game on.